Tonight we chose some of our readers, our poets, in part because their work is interesting in the context of the current exhibit here in the gallery. And our next reader is Lara Henrikson, my bad. And aspects of Lara's work have some synergy with Todd Reed's work. Todd's work is the work on the south wall, and the last two items here on the east wall. They're the painted metal sculptures. So as in terms of a bio, this is going to be really short. Lara Henrikson lives and writes in Batavia with her husband and 4 sons. Lara, come on up.
Thank you, Kevin. Maybe a little bit. If you wouldn't mind, just.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, perfect. Hi. The first poem I'm going to read is titled Continental Divide. When speaking of the delectable matters of body and soul, it's wise to get off one's back and say what needs to be said. 1. Though God knows words favor the body, but never the soul. It's as if when opening the mouth, eruptions of craggy shale arise from the midline, rendering the way impassable to all but the toughest nuts. Those who've base camped on the rended heart, men with yellowed beards and thick digits, women whose breasts hang unbound to the hips. The rest of us are meat with a capital M, wondering how it is we're on our knees again, begging again, shale filleting our virgin pinks, dizzy with the altitudes of loss. 2. Object lessons abound, and unless they're yours, are cliché and interchangeable. Maybe the man grinds the woman up against a wall. Maybe she's game, maybe not. Maybe despite the tang of her so thick he tastes it, he's so alone that his nerves have webbed the raw perimeter of the body. Or sunk to the interior in a mucky tangle of need. Either way, the body mispronounces the needs of the soul as it flails 20 degrees on the upthrust in search of what? Himself? Himself in the eyes of a benevolent God? 3. When visiting either brothel or chapel, expect to lounge on the plush of crimson reassurance that one is, at least for the moment, lovable. Expect to doubt it, and for that doubt to inflame the need to believe. Expect to open one's pocketbook to pay for the privilege of disbelief. The question becomes not, do I believe it, but rather, is it true? The dirty business of meeting oneself, a costly and many-pronged road. At which juncture does the sinner become the saint? 4. To count the ways to divide the soul from mouth and body, or how the single-celled act or word assumes a life of its own, entirely apart from its noble counterpart, please see Bio 101, where you sat behind the boy with that Marlboro smell of unrest all over his flannel shirt. Maybe he was pitcher or quarterback and wrapped with a bow. But it didn't take the valedictorian to know that he led straight to the sterile, vacuum-equipped table where innocence is bagged and trucked off as medical waste. Amen. 5. On how to traverse the Great Divide, we might study the habits of the Boy Scout. That is, be always prepared, with boots tied high, bottle at the belt loop, our compass aiming unfailingly north. But even the Boy Scout grows old and vainglorious, his belly dumpy and lax, as he stands thin-soled, mapless, and thirsty at the base. And oh, 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 if we'd only known what was at stake. If we'd only scanned the horizon. Poor soul, so oft misunderstood, poorly translated, and left grunting after such unjust deserts. The next poem is Immortal Reach. Number 1, Cain and Abel. If we can slide down the shaft of human history to its base, there we will find the original phallus. First things first, and 9 months later, a murderer is born. His meager offering of grain woeful to the Lord. Then Abel, blueprint for many millennia of brothers to step on the rise of the other's buttocks, up and over on the ladder to perpetuity. Or the hope thereof, because, of course, it never pans out. There is always one more step. The cloud of the Lord rising and rising like a mirage. 2, trees. Can we say it's in the design? Men sibi concha recti, a sperm of potential that from the moment it meets soil commits itself to the sunshine, coexisting inasmuch as he has room to flex the legs and square the shoulders. Unless he blows himself to the oblivion of the eternal erection, his 72 virgins pulsing at the top. But that's like playing who can stay under the longest by filling one's pockets with stones and jumping into the 10 feet. Who really wins in the end? 3, Babel. A, says Run DMC, you talk too much. You never shut up. You know, you talk too much. Yeah, you never shut up. B, more than the atomic bomb, the tongue. More than Ebola, riding one's bike without a helmet, or sushi from questionable sources. C, how many burns have we inflicted? How many do we carry? What lives lay behind us like the charred toothpicks of pine after a timberland fire? D, open the mouth and bricks plunk out, each custom made for a throne that is never as resplendent as our neighbors. 4, rocket ships. Now we want to impregnate the cosmos with this phantasmagoric dream of ourselves as interplanetary Romeos. Our orgasmic bursts of self-applause followed close on the heels by a vague sense that we are no better off than fireflies in a jar, having hit the glass ceiling, flashing and flashing with the desperation of eons of others hoping to survive as the fittest. In this, there is no one to whom we may slip a Mickey, a 20, or offer to blow. In the context of infinite space, we are infinitely ill-equipped. 5, skyscrapers. It verges on the ridiculous how often the mechanics of Earth reflect the physics of the phallus, and how tenaciously the design pursues the Godhead, whomever we imagine him or her to be. When we get to a certain point, we will float or fall, depending. count on a cutoff, followed by one's face getting to know the gravel of the proverbial playground of our efforts. So we are the imagination of another, a fussy speck on a giant's knee, all we feared as a child. Let us hope someone will forgive us as we stomp and squeak and thrust our pelvises up like fists to the great forever and beyond. Take a deep breath, because there's one more. Okay. This last one is called Sanctification, and I just want to quickly, because I'm going to be talking about form, I think, in a minute, I just want to point out, because I'm not going to be including this in the reading of the poem. This poem has the format of a formal outline. So you have the one and the A and the one and the little a and all that. So it's broken down thusly. But it works more than when you're reading it on the page silently than it does when I'm saying 1A, 1B. So somehow when we read it on the page, those little A's and B's register, but they don't quite have the same impact as a word. I'm just going to do the 1, 2, 3s. Sanctification. 1. If they thought at all, they thought of themselves as rays of light, hitting the beveled diamond face of the Lord and shattering out. In holy transformation, a blessing to those more promiscuous and stoned. Motes of glow in the boondocks. In ecstasy, better than sex, so to speak, the sense of one's holiness like nothing else. 2. On one's knees in the humus, sunlight twitching through the canopy. The rubble of death, a grim understory to one's own story. One's boots, one's big virile breaths, icing up like tiny A-bombs over the hulls of insect and wood, of leafery. You, with the complex language, made in the image of God. Ferreting through the day with a sharp little tongue, so jinsu, ready to slice through anything, e.g. a perfectly good union ribboned, curling prettily onto the loam. Having convinced themselves of the communal hum, they are feeling so synchronous with the larger purpose of perpetuating the wool, of peeing in the burble. What was absorbed now dispersed and reabsorbed as what? An otter? A cattail on the fly? Chloride, sodium, potassium, etc. He works in mysterious ways. 4. Watch how the body deflates into itself even before physical death occurs. The lips curling in. Mention the words which were said. Consider the tongue is a restless evil full of deadly poison. The eyes balding and capsizing back. Oh God, the things they have seen flooding into the sockets. The hole too wide for the finger staunch. Thinking one was on top of it, above it, skiffing along on a northerly course to Shangri-La. Hoist the pails. The shoulders buckling like sleepy wings. The knees, the spine, the cranium. Mind-boggling, eye-popping, astounding in its curvature. So proud of themselves as they bear witness. Having clarified the luminous journey of spirit and bone.